Shalom, and welcome to our History Podcast. This is a production of KingdomPreppers.org. I'm your host, Kingdom Prepper, and you're listening to Churchianity, 2,000 Years of Leaven. We continue with our history. Part 9, The Barbarian Element. For 8 podcasts, our history has focused on the origin and development of Christianity within the borders of the Roman Empire, for it was in fact born within that empire, as a direct result of the Messianic Israelites who were under Roman rule, and from whom early Christians borrowed heavily. Catholics, Protestants, and even Eastern Orthodox Christians all have the Roman Empire in common when it comes to tracing their early Christian heritage, which sits a tainted mess. But facets of Christianity, some considered heretical, developed beyond the borders of the Roman Empire as well. Prior to the invasion of the so-called barbarians, Christianity was already being accepted by Germanic peoples to the north. And to the east, where Syriac was predominantly spoken, the expansion of Christianity continued well outside the empire. Syriac was the language of trade and international commerce, a language akin to Aramaic. The Israelites of the diaspora, as we pointed out in our very first podcast in this series, had lost their ancient Hebrew language, and the Hebrew scriptures that were read in synagogues could only be understood by a scant few. Before Christianity emerged, Israelites had already ceased speaking Hebrew by and large, and thus the need for Aramaic translations of both the scriptures and written forms of oral traditions, such as those embodied in the Targums, became a priority. Just as the Septuagint benefited Greek-speaking Christians in the East, Aramaic translations of portions of scripture found their way into the hands of Christians in that region who spoke Aramaic. Later, the scriptures would be translated directly into Syriac to accommodate the many Christians in the East who existed beyond the reach of Rome. Notably, the Mesopotamian city-state of Edessa, located in what is now southeastern Turkey, embraced Christianity early on, albeit a Manichaean-influenced version. Tall tales and invented legends concerning the spread of Christianity to that city persist to this day, with the core of the tale being that Yeshua himself corresponded with the city's king, Abgar V, before the emissary Thomas was allegedly dispatched to convert the nobility. In his book, Pagans and Christians, Robin Lane Fox writes concerning this:
"A king's Christianity deserved a noble ancestry, so the Edessans invented one. Perhaps we can also pin down their emphasis on Judas Thomas, the city's supposed evangelist. We have learned recently that the heretical prophet Mani corresponded with the people of Edessa in the mid-3rd century and sent them his apostle Addai, also called Thomas, as the preacher of his new missionary gospel."
Also, east of the Roman Empire, Armenia embraced Christianity prior to Constantine's conversion, and the Armenians produced a version of scripture in their language. They were instrumental in spreading Christianity to the Kingdom of Georgia as well. The spread of Christianity even penetrated Persia at an early date. And history shows that it was present in India as early as the 2nd century. The Christian teacher Pantaenus, who taught the church Father Clement in Alexandria, is said to have traveled to India around the year 180, and one of the attendants at the Nicene Council of 325 was John the Persian, said to be of India. By the 5th century, Christianity was firmly established in India. In far west, still focusing beyond the borders of the Roman Empire, there existed Irish Christianity, brought there by the renowned Saint Patrick, the former slave of Great Britain who later witnessed to his Irish captors. Since Ireland was bypassed by the barbarians in their conquest of Europe, many monasteries that were established in the country were later accessed for their stores of classical knowledge and literature that had been destroyed or lost when the Germanic tribes swept through the Roman Empire in its many territories. Among those Germanic tribes, north of Constantinople, were people who practiced the heretical Arian form of Christianity. We covered Arianism in parts 6 and 7 of this podcast series. After being introduced to the religion by their captive Ulfalas, the Goths then spread Arianism to other Germanic tribes, who later settled the old frontiers of the Roman Empire. Thus, many of the barbarian invaders were Christians, though not of the perceived Orthodox persuasion. In his book, Medieval Europe, Chris Wickham writes,
"The northern boundary of the Roman Empire ran right across what is now Europe, along the rivers Rhine and Danube, plus, in Britain, Hadrian's Wall, marking a sharp north-south contrast, not just in political allegiance, but in culture and the economy, which outlasted the end of the Western Empire by centuries. The contrast with what the Romans called the barbarian world to the north was considerable. There, the economy was far simpler, and so was local material culture. Political groupings were much smaller and simpler too, and often, indeed, very fluid, with identities changing as different ruling families rose and fell. Immediately north of the Rhine and Danube, most of these groupings spoke Germanic languages. Not surprisingly, barbarian peoples, especially their leaders, were very interested in the wealth of Rome and tried to get some of it, either by raiding, even invasion, or by taking paid service in the Roman army.
To listen to the full audio of this podcast, or to download a free MP3 version, visit our website, kingdompreppers.org, by clicking the link in the description, and journey with us on this important historic odyssey.